Okay. I'd prefer you to use the D2L email because the .mts or at mtsu.e, it's been doing that. EDU one is the one that I get all the university email, and I get a lot of spam and stuff, and sometimes I've had student emails get lost there. The D2L email, they won't get lost because there's an email just for this class. And I'll try to respond to emails pretty quickly. I'm sad to say I'm connected about 16 hours of the day. So if you send me an email and you don't hear back from me within 4 or 5 hours, send me another one because something has probably happened. I usually respond within an hour. I never take more than half a day, unless I'm sick or dead and brought back to life or something. So office hours will be by Zoom. If you tell me you need to talk to me about something, if it's not something that you grab me before class or after class kind of thing, I'll be around for a little bit afterwards. We'll do that via Zoom. Little warning, if I end class early and I'm still wearing this thing and you come up to talk to me about something private, and I don't forget to take it off, you'll get recorded. So, Dr. Sherman, I need to, cancel. I need to stop coming to class because I'm pregnant. I don't know what don't do that. Just, tell me to take this thing off or whatever. And that is a real example I've had from other students. I can give you all kinds of examples. So the class is called The Renunciation of Power in The Lord of the Rings in Harry Potter. And it's, half the time when I offer this course, I feel like, or I think, I'm kind of done offering this course. It's outserved its usefulness. And then something happens in the world and I'm like, damn, we're right. If we would just learn our lessons, we wouldn't. So, the Harry Potter novels and The Lord of the Rings, that's what you need to have. Whether you have them in physical books, okay, or you have them online on your computer, on your phone, etc., doesn't matter to me. I will make this one caveat to that, though. Everything that I will refer to for Lord of the Rings is this copy. So if you've got The Lord of the Rings in individual volumes, okay, the pagination will probably be different. And I'm going to refer to page numbers. I'll refer to turn to chapter, so-and-so page, like that. So it'll be a little bit more difficult for you to follow. Notice that implies, I'm assuming you're bringing something to class to follow along in. Don't make that assumption false on my part, please. Okay? There's something about that in the syllabus later. Same thing with the Harry Potter text. Most of those first 4 books will all be based on the American, I'll use the American edition, paperback, Scholastic. You'll see when I bring mine in, the 4th book, it's literally held together by tape and prayers, because it's just falling apart. In the 5th book hardback. I think the pagination is the same as in the paperback. But book 6 and 7, Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows, all my handwritten notes and stuff are in the British editions. I used to teach the Appeal of Harry Potter course in London every other year from 2003, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, and 16. I haven't taught it since. So those last 2 books, I got at the release in London and was quickly scribbling notes because all my students had read them the night they came out and stuff, and I still had to kind of prepare lectures on them and such. So all my notes were in those, but for both of those, I've got the American pagination written on almost every page, which is kind of dangerous because that kind of implies I'm going to refer to almost every page. It's not quite that bad, but it's pretty close in those 2 books, which could take the entire semester alone. Little, thing of mine and a lot of Tolkien scholars. The Lord of the Rings is one novel. It's one really long story. We'll talk about that when we get into Tolkien's Forward. It's not a trilogy. If you were in my other class, my fantasy lit course, which is before this class, we are going to read 2 trilogies. We're going to read the Bartimaeus trilogy by Jonathan Stroud, which is actually now a Bartimaeus quintilogy. There's 5 books plus a separate book of short stories. But the original 3 are really a trilogy. Okay? They're 3 stories with largely the same characters dealing with an overarching, kind of plot, but you can read each one of them individually on its own and thoroughly know what's happening. You can't pick up The Return of the King and just jump right in, automatically understand. You're going to be woefully lost. Okay? You can, with some exceptions really, really late, you can kind of do that with the Harry Potter novels. You don't have to read Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone in order to read Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. For the simple reason J.K. Rowling always gives you background. Okay? When you get up to books 5, 6, and 7, however, you're going to be lost. And, one of my students said yesterday, Chamber of Secrets is the worst book. She didn't need to read it. There's a pretty big reveal, I'll throw this out there, in the Chamber of Secrets that if you're not familiar with the Chamber of Secrets, you're going to miss how that starts getting revealed in books 4, 5, 6, and 7. It's alluded to in 4, it's revealed in 5, and it comes to fruition in 6 and 7. And it's huge. The films completely kind of miss it, by the way. Yeah, stupid thing. Antivirus crap from the university. So, it's one big book, like this. This is how Tolkien originally wanted it published. His publisher, Alan Unwin, said, no way. Nobody, unless your last name is Russian, they're not going to buy a book this long. Dostoevsky, War and Peace, Tolstoy. They could write things like this and get away with it, okay? But not Tolkien. I mean, his previous book that had been published by them was The Hobbit. 200 pages, words not nearly as tightly packed on a page like this one is, things like that. So they said, no, you're going to have to divide it into 3 volumes. Okay? So they did, and they published the first volume, and then the second volume got published about 6-9 months later, and the third volume didn't get published till a year after that. Okay? So it's one really, really long book. And then I've got the link. Apparently I don't have the link there. Yeah, it's not there. Wonder why. I've got the link for the essay on fairy stories on D2L under the content tab. Right. Oh, you're not going to do that, are you? Right. Well, I've got it open here, but if I go back to content, I shouldn't have done that. It's down here. Come on. Okay, where is it? So, course description. At least once this semester, you're going to see me make a complete fool of myself. And it'll be recorded in 2 different ways. Because I'm going to have the mask on, and I'm going to try to drink water. Yesterday was the first day I've been back in a physical classroom since March of 2020. And the world has changed. Course description. You can read that on your own, but it's about the renunciation of power. Here's power. I don't want it. It's pretty much what it's about in both these authors' works. Okay. Disclaimer. 2 most important parts of that are the first sentence and the 4th sentence. Syllabus is subject to revision. Usually what that means is I talk too much and we get behind, which you're going to find out happens very easily. I love this stuff. And I love talking about it. So, you won't be able to shut me up. And then this one. Check your D2L daily before class. All right? If I have to cancel for some reason, I will post an announcement and send an email via D2L. See, we meet at 9:40. That'll get posted by 7 o'clock. So if you've got a bit of a drive to come in, you'll know well ahead of time. Okay? Students with disabilities, you know who you are. I probably already received that information from the DAC. Attendance and masks, this is new for my courses. I usually have a required attendance policy, and if you miss a certain number, you fail the course, that kind of thing. Can't do that anymore. If you look at the things under the attendance policy, the MTSU one, if you look at that, it gives you per COVID some reasons, symptoms, why you shouldn't come to school or work. What are some of them? Anybody know? Fever. Headache. Exposure to someone with COVID. Let's leave COVID actually out for a moment. So, fever, headache. Loss of taste and smell. Especially smell, really big one. Louder.
Coughing or sore throat.
Coughing, sore throat. Nausea. How many of you have those every now and then anyways? I had several years ago, had a ENT, ear, nose, and throat doctor, say I had chronic laryngitis. Only thing I can do about it, have my tonsils removed. At the age of nearly 60, not going to happen. Why? Hurts like, his words, hell. He's not the doctor there anymore. He wouldn't do it for people unless it was almost life-threatening, for people generally in their 30s and older. Why? It's a lot easier to remove tonsils from a 10-year-old who you can tell to shut up and essentially strapped down to bed. Videos and ice cream. What else is there to live for? But if you're in your 30s, what do you have? Life. 10-year-olds don't really have life. Okay, they can, But, if I don't have this, disability, here I come, kind of a thing. And it's, tonsillectomy at my age, it's not, 2 weeks and you're fine. It's more like 5 to 6 weeks. And until that scab forms, just sheer hell. From everything, because I did actually look into it and said, no, not for me. So, what does that mean practically that I don't have a required attendance policy? Now, some of you are going to cheer, probably quietly, and the rest of you, won't care. You don't have to come to class. Honestly. You don't have to come to class. Everything is recorded and put online. I'm recording it on my computer here. That will get uploaded to a playlist on YouTube. I'll send you that playlist later on this afternoon once it gets uploaded. And everything's uploaded via that camera there. The difference between the two is I'm wearing the mic for that camera and it picks up everything. It sometimes doesn't realize I'm speaking English, however, and the transcriptions can be kind of humorous, okay? And it captures everything here, and if I've got stuff on my computer like this, okay? My photo booth video on my laptop doesn't do that quite as well. And it doesn't caption automatically. I can go into YouTube and caption everything, but life's too short and I'm not going to live that long. So everything's recorded, everything's online. You can pass the class literally if you don't come to class. If you watch all the videos, what that does mean, however, is you are still responsible for everything in class. Everything that's done. Okay? But all the assignments, quizzes, exams, they're all going to be by D2L. All right? Not going to do any quizzes in class. Why? We don't have, I mean, this is the one thing I love about D2L. Because, like I said, I talk a lot, and I can get us way behind. Quizzes take 10 minutes. That's 10 minutes extra. Now I have to talk about something that I, really like to talk about. Or for us to get into good conversation, which I would really like. Doesn't usually happen, but, tell me to shut up, you got a question, raise your hand, whatever. So, you don't have to physically be here. You can pass the class from watching the videos, doing the quizzes online. I'll talk about quizzes and exams later. I'm not going to Zoom. Just forget that. And there's stuff there about COVID and how many of you are vaccinated, and how many of us are vaccinated. Don't ask me how I know. It really bothers me. The university got the names of everybody who is associated with MTSU from the State Department of Health. Yeah, to me that's a huge HIPAA violation. Because MTSU, pardon?
What about people outside the state?
If they're a student at MTSU, well, if they got it in the state, I guess. So if you're from Alabama, I don't think they know the names of all MTSU students. They tell us who are vaccinated, and all faculty. Because I immediately, when I heard that, I sent a question to my faculty center and said, how do they know this? Because that seems to me to be a huge privacy issue. Anyways.
Did they publish that to y'all?
Yeah, it was said in a faculty senate meeting, and then was sent out. Oh, you mean the names?
Yeah.
No. Oh, no. Sorry. No. Just this percentage.
That number makes me very unhappy.
Yeah. Well, so they actually passed a legislation citing COVID specifically as not HIPAA as far as vaccination statuses only. So like everything else they wouldn't be able to get, but the COVID vaccination status alone they can.
Yeah.
But they can't do like positive and negative testing and how many times and all that stuff. It seems very sketchy.
So, anyways,
It is.
masks are required. If you come in not wearing a mask, I'll tell you to put a mask on. You can get them next door. If you don't have one, she's got a box on the floor full of masks. We were also told by the provost the other day, if you don't come in wearing a mask and you already sit down and I take you outside, say you need to wear a mask, and you come back the next day and you don't wear a mask and you're kind of, you say, I don't want to wear a mask, and got rights, et cetera, I'm supposed to call MTSU police. Okay? I am not going to call MTSU police. So, if somebody comes in wearing a mask, not wearing a mask, and it really freaks you out, and I can understand, and you don't like that, and you want me to call the police, I'm not going to call the police. So you have two options. You can either sit there, whatever, or you're, again, more than welcome to get up and leave. I will probably, after the second time, if somebody doesn't wear a mask, I'll contact Student Affairs. And I can almost guarantee you what they will do. One, they will contact you, and I don't mean this, sequentially. I mean, this will probably happen simultaneously. One, they'll contact you, and two, they'll probably ask MTSU police to send an officer for the beginning of this class to just kind of mill around outside the door so that if an officer sees you without a mask, you will be informed it is MTSU policy to be wearing a mask. I had a student yesterday morning, he sat in that chair, that chair, the entire period without a mask. Mentioned it several times. If it's who I think it is, because I'm not sure, because, I didn't go over a roll, because you guys have masks on. I'm not going to know you from Adam without being, and even with your masks off. I would recognize your face at the end of this semester, but I probably still wouldn't know your name. I'm really, really bad with names. I'll recognize you 20 years from now, because I've literally had students from 20 years ago. And I go, oh yeah, who are you again? But students sat there the entire period, even though I mentioned 3 or 4 times. But that's a short, 55-minute, I don't have the time to stop it, anyways. But I will tomorrow. When he comes in, I'll probably say something. I will say something. Cell phones, laptops, all that kind of stuff. Trying to get through all this kind of quickly. Don't use your cell phone in class. Should go without saying. Don't take selfies. Had a class a couple of years ago, and this one young lady sitting in the back, I'm not kidding, she would spend 25, 30 minutes, 15, 30 minutes taking selfies for like the first 2 weeks of class, every class period. And I finally, during class, she's sitting back there, just like you got such a great background in the corner of any room in Peck Hall, okay? And I finally, Julia or whatever her name was, don't go off.
If you don't take a selfie, you weren't there.
Well, I finally called her out on it and said, just leave. Just leave. Just, what the? Technology, ain't it wonderful? She eventually did. Midway, about 3/4 of the way through the semester, she just stopped showing up. And she didn't do hardly any work anyway, so don't do selfies. If you're using your phone for the texts for the class, that's fine. If you've got them on, iBooks or whatever, and you're reading along, that's fine. But if you're sitting there doing this, I know you're not reading. Okay? Same thing, if you got a laptop, tablet, whatever, that's more than fine. Okay? Big kind of caveat. If you have, like right now, if something's going on with a member of your family, a loved one for you, roommate, doormate, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, and that's going on right now, and there's the possibility of somebody being hospitalized or something getting really serious, let me know. And if that happens within the course of the semester, let me know. And let me know soon. I mean, if you're at home and somebody has a heart attack, don't send me a text first. Call 911, CPR. Once the situation immediately is resolved, within 24, 48 hours at the most, shoot me an email. You don't have to go into great detail. If you just say, something happened to my father, he's in the hospital, I might not make it to class, can I get an extension on this quiz? 99.9% of the time, you got it. I will do everything in my power to make sure you can complete this course. And the example I just used happened a couple years ago. I mean, other than COVID, because again, I haven't been in a class for almost a year and a half. Other than COVID, like for the 5 years preceding that, every semester, I've had a class where someone has had some horrendous family emergency. I had this class, a night class, I had a girl walk in one night in tears. She puts her stuff down and she's just, bawling. I asked her what's going on. Her dad died 5 minutes earlier. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing here? Literally. Help her out. One of the guys got all her stuff. And crazy. Student diagnosed with cancer at 22 and, the whole 9 yards. So, if that kind of situation is going on, yeah, you can have your phone out. Put it on vibrate. If I know ahead of time and your phone vibrates and you look at it and you get up and leave, no questions asked. Okay? Similarly, if you're a first responder, fire, police, EMT, whatever, let me know, leave it out, it vibrates, you're out of here. That's not a problem. Okay? What else? There's all kinds of stuff there about taking notes on laptops. You can read that on your own. Stop it. Classroom decorum. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but try to arrive to class on time. A lot of that, goes without saying. You can eat during class. just do so quietly. Don't come in, class is fairly packed. Don't come in if you're sitting between two people here and two people here with a big old extra large bag of extra crunchy, Doritos or something. Because people start, having strokes and such. And unfortunately, I can't turn the camera around to zoom on somebody. I can with this, but it's not a zoom. Don't fall asleep during class. I have twice, it's at least twice. I'm in my 29th year. I have gone up, to students before who've been sitting like here, head down, off in La La Land, and done that. Okay. Generally doesn't happen again. If you need to sleep that badly, sleep at home. The attendance policy. Hello, you don't physically have to be here. If you work a night shift at Amazon, okay, do what works. Just not here. Okay. And the last thing, second to the last thing. Headphones, earbuds. Again, should go without saying. Don't wear them in class. I've had 3 or 4 students last few years who would come into class, usually sitting in one of those 2 corners, earbuds or headphones on, where I could hear the music up here. And I don't mean just, before class began. I mean throughout the entire period. One of them was a night class, 3-hour class. And I could pick up every track. And I eventually, after first 2 or 3 nights, just said, you either stop or leave. And I think in that situation, the person left. The music was more important than however much money he'd shelled out for it. So just don't do that. It's rude. And the last thing, come prepared to participate. Participation is defined as, at the very least, bare minimum, having a book in front of you. Okay, let me rephrase that. I've come to learn you have to be much more legalistic in your use of language. Having this book for the next couple weeks in front of you. Okay, and when we start Harry Potter, have the appropriate Harry Potter book in front of you. Does not mean, number 7, having your biology or chemistry textbook in front of you, as I've had students before. I've literally had a student in a night class come in, we're in one of the classes facing that direction, come in and set, like one of those book stands that'll hold your book up and open for you, set it like right there, and it was kind of hollowed out so I could see what the title of the book was, her Intro to Chemistry. And she sat there the whole night long, just, for several nights, just taking notes. And I was just like, why do we even try? And I didn't mention anything. But you got to see, I think, out of the course. So just don't do that. So bring the appropriate book. That's bare minimum. Something to take notes with would be good. I encourage you to take notes. I encourage you to highlight your books, etc. Okay? I'm not going to do this. That was, I usually reuse syllabi and such, and that was, a threat I used immediately after that one semester. Worked. Okay. What else? Quizzes. Failure to submit 3 or more quizzes and or failure to submit an exam will result in failure of the course. Okay? There will be an absolute bare minimum of 10 quizzes. All right? 1 for each of the volumes of The Lord of the Rings and 1 for each of the Harry Potter novels. Okay, that's absolute bare minimum. I can guarantee you there's going to be more than that. Because I can't do a single quiz over Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. It's 868 pages? 780 pages, something like that. Okay? I can't do a single quiz over Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, or Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, or really, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. So that's 4 more quizzes right there. So probably minimum of 14. Okay? When I do prepare a quiz and put it up, it'll tell you, this quiz is over, first one might be over all of Fellowship of the Ring. I can almost guarantee you it won't, but like I'm 98% sure it won't. But the quiz will say this is over the first half. You know, for example, Fellowship of the Ring. Each of Tolkien's volumes is divided into 2 books. So the Fellowship of the Ring is book 1 and 2. The Two Towers is books 3 and 4. Return of the King is books 5 and 6. So the first quiz might say, this is over book 1 of Fellowship of the Ring. That's essentially the first half, right? And the reason I've done this is because there's no attendance policy. It used to be, if you don't take the quiz, it's fine. Hurts you. I mean, those 10-point quizzes, 10 to 20 point, usually 10, add up. Oh, by the way, each quiz will also have extra credit. Almost every quiz will have extra credit. And probably each of the exams will have extra credit. And the exam extra credit is usually about 30 points. Okay? And everything will be objective. Multiple choice, true, false, fill in the blank / short answer. Okay? If you notice, the syllabus doesn't say anything about papers. You're not writing a paper in this class. If you took almost any other 2020 in the department, you would. In fact, you probably write more than one. One of the reasons I do that is this is a literature course. It's not a writing course. And what I want to emphasize is you getting into this material, and this material getting into you, like a virus, just sitting in your brain, percolating over the years, so that something happens and you're like, damn, Tolkien was smart. Or look what J.K. Rowling, kind of had this situation. Right? Grading's real easy. No makeup quizzes will be given, other than those kind of exceptions I mentioned before, family emergency, that kind of thing. If we have widespread power outages because of storms, yeah, I'll probably bump it back and stuff. But other makeup quizzes, if you just overslept, forgot to take it, sorry. Late exams, only extreme cases, and then all I do for determining your final grade, add up the total number of points you earned, including all the extra credit, divided by the total number of points possible, not including the extra credit. So I've literally had students finish this class with like 100 points more than you theoretically could get. Okay? But those students were real Tolkien Rowling nerds. I mean, questions? Okay, where am I? So then, we just have the schedule. And I don't know how long we're actually going to be here today. I'd plan on using the full time, but I feel like I'm going to pass up. So, Fellowship of the Ring, what is that? A week and a half? Today, Thursday, and Tuesday of next week. So, assuming it stays that way, probably I might post a quiz like Thursday evening and have it due Sunday evening. Let's assume we covered the first half of that volume on Thursday, which it's not a safe assumption we won't. Could be a quiz then. At the very least, after the 31st, there will be a quiz. Usually what I try to do is I try to post quizzes like on Wednesday and have them due Sunday at midnight, so you have several days, but once you open the quiz, you only have 10 to 15 minutes, okay? And then about 3 days for the Two Towers and about 3 days for Return of the King. Notice we get to Harry Potter 1 day for each of the first 2 books. Why? Because there's a lot of stuff we can skip. The really important stuff in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone is in the last 40 pages. The really important stuff in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets is in the last 40 pages. Okay? Azkaban changes it a little bit. And then Goblet of Fire, I don't have enough days for Goblet of Fire. I just realized that. Thought I had more days down there. Shoot.
I do have a question though.
Yes.
Do you recommend that we do our best to read because I haven't read Tolkien yet. Do you recommend that we read the books in its entirety if we can?
Oh, yeah.
Continue doing
Yeah,
that?
yeah, pretty much required.
Okay.
Okay? That's why I said at the beginning, you might not have been here yet. Watching the films won't help. I'll just tell you that right now. In either one. Yes.
I feel like I've only read probably maybe made it halfway through Two Towers after getting all the way through The Hobbit, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just feeling it's like a mega ask to reread all of Tolkien like one book a week.
Yep.
That's a lot of stuff. That's like a lot of content. Is there like an abridged version that I can use or?
Not that I know of.
There's some like chapters you can skip, and like there's a Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, I mean, there are chapters you can skip if your understanding is based upon the films. You see, you can't really skip at the House of Tom Bombadil in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, because Tom Bombadil is a character who, although he doesn't belong in the Lord of the Rings, he literally does not belong. Tolkien was writing, and he just kind of dropped him in from other stuff he was writing. He does become important in one of the two most important chapters of the first volume, the Council of Elrond. The two most important chapters in the Fellowship of the Ring are the Shadow of the Past, which is the second chapter of Book 1, and the Council of Elrond, which is the second chapter of Book 2. Because it's in those two chapters that Tolkien gives us kind of all of the background information we need to go completely forward. Okay? It's not to say none of the other chapters are important. Okay? They are. And if this were an ideal world, we would spend time talking about every chapter, but we won't. We won't, for example, talk at all about Farmer Maggot. Unfortunately, because he's kind of an interesting character and such. We will Tom Bombadil, we will Prancing Pony and Bree, we will on the journey to Rivendell and what happens at Weathertop and the Forge of Ruin, and yay, Liv Tyler shows up to save the day. Nonsense. So it is a big ask, okay? It's not as big as in my fantasy lit course, where the two trilogies they're reading, each of the books in those trilogies are 500-600 pages. I had one student because it was a night class, one book a week. And they're like, how do you expect? I said, you signed up for it. Okay, the books were posted at that time. Books were posted. You could have looked. And he ended up, it was like the first night of class, he ended up dropping. That's not a problem. There are, how many are there? There's like 30 or 40 of these 2020 courses. Pretty much everything within reason, and actually some outside reason, that you could imagine, okay? So we just kind of zip through with the rest of the schedule. So there's stuff about quizzes and exams. 10 to 15 minutes each, just 1 second for both of you, and then I'll get back. Exams, about 60 to 90 minutes each. The first exam, well, actually both exams will be largely based upon the quizzes. Okay? And once you take your quiz, and once I grade each individual quiz, that is, you finish your quiz, I'm going to have it set up so that D2L will show you right and wrong answers. Almost everybody, okay, unless it's true, false, or multiple choice. Almost everybody in here, you're going to get a quiz back, or you're going to be able to look it up, and you're going to have an answer that you would swear, on God's green earth, it's the correct answer, and yet it's marked wrong. And you're going to fire off an email to me. And I'm going to respond back, if I haven't already graded it, and say, don't worry, I haven't looked at the quizzes yet, because I'll go through each one of your quizzes, question by question. Why? Because D2L is artificial intelligence in terms of the grading. What does that mean? It's extremely stupid. It doesn't grade context. It doesn't grade for spelling variation. It doesn't grade for punctuation differences. Like if you put an apostrophe and there's not an apostrophe, wrong. Okay? That's why I have to go through every one. And when it comes to exams, when there's anywhere from, sometimes I've done this where an exam has had literally 100 questions and they're each just worth 1 point. Because that makes it, you can miss a hell of a lot and still pass, kind of a thing. Going through every one of those, there's 25 of you. 25 of you, if I did an exam with 100 questions, you do the math. That's 2,500 questions. To open up D2L, go to that question, save it, and go to takes a bit of time. Okay. Now, you had a question?
Yes. So I ordered my textbooks from textbook brokers, and they're still on back order.
Oh.
Should I cancel that order and then go to like a bookstore and get them, do you think? Because I tried to pick them up Friday and they weren't ready. And I haven't received anything else. I called again yesterday and they still weren't ready.
Are they offered at the library here?
They should be in the library.
Or like Phillips bookstore or something.
Phillips definitely should have them.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's who I placed the order with back in July. One thing, for the Lord of the Rings, I don't know about Harry Potter.
Lord of the Rings on Kindle is free.
Well, yeah, you can get Lord of the Rings free electronically. But I was going to say, a used bookstore would, and there's a couple in town whose names I forget. A used bookstore, I can almost guarantee, or even Goodwill possibly, will have Lord of the Rings in paperback.
Okay.
Probably a 1970s or 1980s version. Okay,
I just
and maybe Harry Potter. I was gonna say, let me know Thursday, but you need to start reading. Come to my office before I say that. Question over here.
Yeah. So is the Tolkien exam going to be about in a month when we finish Tolkien, or is it going to be around the midpoint?
No, it'll be about when we finish Tolkien. So back up to here. Assuming a perfect world and we stick with the syllabus, the Tolkien exam will probably be, let's see, the 16th is on a Thursday. I'll probably post it on Wednesday the 15th, and it would be due that following Sunday, which is going to be the 20th, the 19th at midnight. Okay, so you'll usually have at least 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
All right, to get it complete. Back to you. Come with me at the end of class because I might have another copy that you could borrow in my office.
It also says that it is available at the Walker Library.
Yeah, and it should be available at Phillips. And there should be used ones.
Right.
I would hope they ordered used ones in Phillips. Not positive if they did or not. I could probably literally supply almost all of you with the Lord of the Rings.
You're talking about the 2004 edition, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter for that purpose, but in terms of this one, yes.
Yep, they have it right there.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, so I'm going to watch your eyes. I'm going to turn lights back on. I'm going to turn this off. Display off. Up. Close. Close. This is what I was saying at the very beginning in class. Trying to decide whether I should go into this or just skip it like I did with my Tolkien Rowling Monday, Wednesday, Friday course. I'd really like to talk about it though. I've put up on the D2L page the link to Tolkien's essay on fairy stories. You're not required to read it. Okay? I'll say that again. You are not required to read it. It will not show up on a quiz, caveat here, except insofar as I discuss portions of it in class. So if I talk about, what Tolkien says about recovery in class, then what I say about what Tolkien says about recovery might show up on the quiz. But you're not required to read Tolkien's essay, okay? Now, another little kind of caveat here. I'm going to give you a sample quiz, and I think I'll probably try to get it posted tonight or tomorrow. Okay? And that sample quiz, I'll just base on that fairy story essay. But it'll give you an idea of the kinds of things I look for. I can't give you one based on Lord of the Rings because I will inevitably include stuff on it that I want to be included on a real quiz. Okay? But that'll at least show you kind of what the quiz looks like. So, yeah, I'll skip it. So let me see a show of hands again. How many of you have read Lord of the Rings? Put them way up for me. So, not quite half of you. How many of you have seen the films? A little bit more. How many of you have read the Harry Potter stories? Let's see, that's pretty typical. How many have seen the Harry Potter films? Okay. Well, wipe those out of your mind. The films for both. Okay? Because, as I said, you can't watch those, not read the books and pass the class. And if you've not read Lord of the Rings, but you've seen the films, expect a huge difference. Why? Tolkien goes into a lot of detail that completely gets elided in films because you can't go into the detail. Or the detail gets put in the background, the set design and such. Okay? How many of you know how this story kind of began? And when I say this story, I'm going to go back a little farther to The Hobbit. Tolkien was a professor of Anglo-Saxon literature at Oxford University. And
wasn't he, I'm maybe thinking seriously, wasn't he serving in Africa?
no, I mean, the background for the stories that became the stories of Middle-earth, that began...
like telling a story to his kid, and his kid start critiquing. Wasn't the
That's the Hobbit.
Gold or
That's the Hobbit. Okay, so Tolkien created this other world, Middle Earth, right, which is part of Arda, the universe, right, and that began in around 1915. Tolkien was a kind of a genius when it came to languages. I think it was by the age of 8, he knew basic Greek, okay, and Latin. He would later on pick up French, and by the time he was a professor at Oxford, I'm pretty sure he could read something like 14, 15 different languages, and he could speak about half a dozen or so, including ancient Sanskrit, Hebrew. He served as a translator for the Jerusalem Bible and translated part of it's either Job or all of Jonah, I can't remember which. Finnish, Welsh, all the Germanic languages, French, Italian, Romanian, I'm pretty sure. Just uber nerd, right? And in around 1915, when he would have been around 22, 23, he was reading one of the Old English Advent lyrics. I think that's about the right date. And in this lyric, he sees this passage. Eala Arendelle, okay, which means lo, the morning star, or evening star, I can't remember which. Lo, the evening star, I think it is. And something clicked in his mind. And he started writing a poem about this. This became not just evening star, but it became a person. Well, that person is going to be referred to in The Lord of the Rings. Okay? That's part of the background of what's called the Silmarillion, which is the tale of the Silmarils, right? So he starts writing these poems and stories, and he gets, all excited about, well, if they're poems and stories, they need to have a language associated with them, because you don't have poems and stories without a language. Well, it's the language. And he starts creating these languages. Gnomish, Elvish, Dwarvish, and he starts writing dictionaries for them. He's actually serving in the trenches in World War I in France, working on the Gnomish dictionary as shells are being lobbed towards him. You know, and his mates are like, Tullers, what the hell, man? That was their nickname for him, okay? So he finishes the war and finishes the degree and all that kind of stuff and gets to work starting at Oxford. In summer of 1931, he's grading entrance exams for Oxford. And he's got a student's blue book in front of him. I've held this blue book in my hand. I was working on some Tolkien manuscripts once a long time ago. And he's sitting at his desk in his library, studying over his garage, windows open, summer breeze coming through, you know. And he has a student's paper, and he turns the page, and it's blank. He's got his pencil in his hand, and he writes down with his number 2 pencil, in a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. He'd never heard the word hobbit before. He'd never seen the word hobbit before. It's just, in a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. Dot, dot, dot.
So we just Dr. Seussed it?
So he had to figure out, what's a hobbit? And he starts writing a story that he tells to his 4 children. I'm sorry, I'm not ignoring you. I literally, there's enough reverb, I couldn't hear you. What was your
So we
question?
just Dr. Seussed it out of nowhere?
Yeah. I had never heard that phrase before, Dr. Seuss did. Yeah, I mean, it just poof. How did J.K. Rowling come up with the Harry Potter idea? No. That's when she started writing it.
There's all like a train.
She was on a train from Manchester to London. Single unwed mother, penniless. She was on Scottish welfare. She dabbled with writing before, but nothing successfully. She had been a teacher, okay, in France or Portugal, working for Amnesty International and such. But she's on this train. She's got her daughter in her pram and stuff. And, you know, this is in 1991. Dumb as can be, so to speak. I'm not saying anything about her, just, you know, meaning life's not great for her, other than her daughter. In one moment, she has no idea of Harry Potter, and a second later, she has an idea pop into her mind about a boy named Harry Potter who discovers on his 11th birthday that the most fearsome dark wizard in the world who ever lived killed his parents and is after him. Just poof, it's there. And she writes that down on a napkin really quick so she doesn't forget the idea. 6 years later, 1997, she publishes Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. 10 years later, she publishes Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. And she goes from being penniless in 1991 to being the wealthiest woman in the United Kingdom in 2007. Wealthier than the Queen. Just let that sit for a moment. Why did it happen to her and not to me? Why didn't I sometime grade a student's essay and write, in a hole in the ground there lived? Where does that kind of literary inspiration come from? I mean, that can drive you crazy if you think about it. And she doesn't know. She'll tell you, no idea. Okay? Now, there's other people who have said, well, I can tell you, it's because you ripped off part of my story. She's been sued for, plagiarism and such. She's won every lawsuit. So, Tolkien starts telling this story to his children and friends, the Inklings, a group of writers that meet together twice a week, once at the Bird and Baby, called the Eagle and Child, pub in Oxford, where they have beer and smoke and talk about what they're writing, read it to each other, and the other one in one of the members' rooms at Oxford. C.S. Lewis's usually. So he publishes The Hobbit, based on the recommendation of the publisher's 10-year-old son. The publisher gets the typescript and he's like, seriously? This egghead professor at Oxford is sending me a book called The Hobbit, or There and Back Again? He has a little pressy, a little summary what's it about, and he's like, ah. And so he gives it to his 10-year-old son. 10-year-olds were very different in 1936 than they are today, because the 10-year-old son wrote his father a 1.5-page review and recommendation for publishing it. And he does, on the basis of a 10-year-old. Okay? He doesn't publish a lot. I think there's 750 copies, which today go for, I think the last one that went up for auction went for in six figures, over $100,000. And it's immediate bestseller. Okay? People want more. Tell us more about Gandalf. Tell us more about Elrond. Tell us more about, X, Y, Z. So Tolkien tells us in the foreword to the second edition that after the publication of Hobbit, and before he really starts this in force, he asks those whose advice he considers valid, the Inklings, those writers that I mentioned, if they thought there was any hope of getting published those older stories, based like on this, what becomes known as the Silmarillion, and they pretty much all say no. Give up little hope to no hope. So he goes back to this. This has its origins in The Hobbit, because Bilbo Baggins discovers a ring. It turns out to be the all-powerful, ring and stuff. So he starts writing this. And he tells us, it gets written all throughout the Second World War. Part of it is written early. Part of it Peter Jackson completely dropped from the theatrical release, The Scouring of the Shire. One of the most important chapters, okay? Because he didn't think it was important for the swords and sorcery, dragons kind of, mentality that he had. And he publishes the first volume in 1954. Second volume is published about 6 months later, 55. The next volume is published about a year later, if I remember correctly, in 56, I think it is. It's all mentioned in the note on the text in here, okay? So he tells us, in this foreword to the second edition, he tells us, why did I write it? He says, well, here was my motivation. Nope, not that. He says, the prime motive was the desire of a tale teller to try his hand at a really long story. Succeeded there. That would hold the attention of readers, yeah. Amuse them, yes. Delight them, yes. And at times maybe excite them or deeply move them. Yes and yes. Using myself as an example. He says, some, however, who have read the book or at any rate have reviewed it, didn't like it. What's he mean by the or at any rate have reviewed it? They wrote a review, but they didn't read the book. It happens all the time, by the way. Okay? I've been asked to review books I haven't read and had people say, you don't need to read it, just, read the beginning and read the end and skim a little bit in the middle. No, not how it works. So, and Tolkien says, and that's fine if they didn't like my book. Because I tend not to like the kinds of things they write either. Okay? Those critics who really lambasted him were pretty modern people. And I don't just mean modern like they lived in the same time frame as Tolkien. I mean very modern in their attitudes about life and everything. Realism and naturalism in literature, that's what it's important. Not fairy tales and fantasy and dragons and ogres and all that kind of, childish stuff. Okay? So he goes on and says, bottom of page Roman numeral 23, and we're going to stop soon. As for any inner meaning or message, it has in the intention of the author none. None. That is, when I sat down to write this, I did not have as my intention, I'm going to sneak my Catholic theology into the minds of all my readers. Now, C.S. Lewis does say in an essay that he realized he could sneak all kinds of theology into romance, fantasy, and he did. Okay? And I'm not talking about Chronicles of Narnia. I'm talking about his space trilogy and a couple of other things. All right? So Tolkien says, I didn't sit down with the intention to communicate an overarching theme or message. Oh, the ring equals the atomic bomb. Bad. Nope. He just wanted to write a really long story that people really liked or that moved them, made them feel more human in a sense. Okay? It is neither allegorical nor topical. I'm going to stop real quickly because I'm losing it. Allegorical. What does allegorical mean? What's an allegory?
Story to teach a lesson.
Okay. Yes, to some extent. Okay. The only problem with that is every story, whether intentionally or not, teaches a lesson of some sort. Okay. It's the intentional part. And it's where in the story, if you have images, those images, or to use the term that's used much more frequently today, those symbols always point to only one thing. So, for example, not the letter, a cross, pretty much only means Christianity. You seldom see it used by Buddhists or Muslims or Jews or, pick your other religion. It doesn't work that way. Okay? If I put up here, see if I can still draw one. Let's see, which way does it go? I think it goes this way. Looks kind of like that. It's a hammer and sickle. Doesn't stand for full-hearted, robust capitalism or the American way. Well, it didn't used to. The communist symbol, communist Russia. Okay? So, it's where the symbol or the image really only refers to one specific thing. And you aren't free to determine what that thing is. The greatest allegory, known as allegory, in the English language is John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, written in the 17th century. The name of Pilgrim, the Pilgrim, is Christian. What does that tell you? He is not. His name is not Jew. His name is not Rastafarian. His name is not Zoroastrian. It's not Muslim. It's not Buddha. It's Christian. And so it's all about the Christian journey through life. And he goes through all kinds of things. He has to go by the slough of despondency. Slough meaning like marshy, watery area of despondency. That doesn't mean, hey, it's a great day today. It's, despair and death and darkness. Okay? That's allegory. And he says, in allegory, the author kind of wants to be seen as God. And he doesn't mean God in his Catholic sense. He means God as popularly kind of conceived. All-controlling and, deterministic. You have no choice. Because in an allegory, we can't read those things differently. You can't read Christian as anything other than Christian in Pilgrim's Progress. Okay? But he goes on and talks about applicability. And he says, no, I'll stop there. Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about the rest of the forward. What's today? Today's Tuesday. On Thursday, and then get into fellowship. I know this is a big ask. Okay? Get back to your comment earlier. Try to have the first half done for Thursday. I know it's a lot. Because I could bring out my book from my other class. And I could compare number of words per page in that other book. And there's a lot of white space between sentences in that other book. And it's a lot shorter. Tolkien, if Tolkien could have, I'm sure he would have widened the margins and crammed the words together more so that he could include more. But he couldn't. Okay? So, just try as you can. And I'll say that, and I'll be totally honest with you, we may not get through the second chapter. There's a lot in the shadow of the past. We barely will say anything about the first chapter. Okay? We'll pretty much jump to the second. Read the first, because you can't really understand some of what goes on in the second. We'll jump to the second pretty quick. All right, if you have any questions, Feel free to come up and ask. Hold on, I gotta breathe before you come up.
Yeah.